Okay, so I'm going to go on a stroll through my hometown, and also actually on a stroll through the modern movie history. So I'm starting here right outside my school, and this is in 1928. And on the doors here we have two large wings. Oh, that's the first Oscar-winning movie, Wings. And then I move on to some stairs here, and there's a melody coming out of the stairs. It sounds like something from Broadway. Oh, it's the Broadway melody. And then we have 1930 here, and it's a compass pointing to the west. It's very, very quiet, all quiet on the western front. And then I'm at this container. This is 1931. And here is Ron Weasley, and he's swimming. And swimming in Swedish is simma, and that's Cimarron, the movie. And then I walk here to 1932, and that's a giant hotel here, a grand hotel. And I'm climbing up the hotel, and I'm walking into an office building here. And on the table there's some stars. Oh, before the stars we have 1933, and that's in this window there's a cavalcade of things coming out. It's cavalcade, and then we have the stars on this table, and that is no. It's stars because it's night, and something's going on. It happened one night, and then we move on to 1935, and it's in the stairs down in this building here, and lots of pirates are flying around, and they're eating this chocolate bounty, and this is mutiny on the bounty. And then when I'm walking down the stairs here to 1936, I see my friend Sigmark, who's very, very big, and this is the big Ziegfeld. And then I arrive at 1937, the door out of this building, and here I see Emile Zola sitting here, and this is the life of Emile Zola. And then I move further out here, so that will be 1938. And there's some very nice thing in this bush that I'd really like to take with me on this journey, but I'm not allowed to. You can't take it with you. And then we have 1939. It's in the back of a car. A wind is blown away. A big American flag. This is Gone with the Wind. And then I'm coming here to a hill that's sloping down, and this is 1940. And I see a friend of mine lying here, Rebecca. That's also the name of the movie. And then in 1941, on this handrail, there is a valley, like it's a very, very green handrail with a green valley, and the movie is How Green Was My Valley. And then I'm coming to a crosswalk, and there are like mines everywhere, or do you say the exploding things? You call them mines? Yeah. So there's a lot of mines here, and also some old lady walking past. So it's Mrs. Miniver, and then I cross the street to 1943, or rather 1942. Let's see, Mrs. Miniver, Rebecca. Wally. It must be 1943. So it's just a very, very blank road sign here, and this is Casablanca. And then we move on to 1944, and around a tree here is an old like a friend of mine who's just walking around, walking his own way, walking my way. And then I jump into an apartment in a building here, and I see someone just sitting here with some wine and lots of crisps, and just wasting the weekend, and it's the lost weekend. And then I move on to the table, and this is 1946, and there we have a calendar marking all of the best years that we had, the best years of our lives. And then we move on to the couch, and there is two gentlemen shaking hands, making an agreement, gentleman's agreement. And then on the side of the couch, Hamlet is standing. This is Hamlet. And then we have 1949, and it's a lot of men there. It's all the king's men. And then we're moving to the balcony, and there we have Eve, Adam and Eve, and it's all about her. Like Adam is getting no attention. This is all about Eve, 1951, and then we move on to 1952, and it's a big. It's the Eiffel Tower actually, and there's an American climbing it, an American in Paris, and then we take a big leap, and we fly through lots of flying circus tents and acrobatics and other stuff, and this is the greatest show on earth. And then we land inside the community building, and this is 1953, and it's a brochure just continuing forever. So it's from here to eternity, and then we're moving out of this building, and on the way we're crossing the waterfront, on the waterfront, and then we arrive at 1955, and we have Marty McFly sitting there on a fence. So this is the movie Marty, and then 1956 there's a statue of a goat, and around this goat is someone traveling around the world in 80 days, around the world in 80 days. And then we move on to a sofa here in the park, and it's standing over a river, the bridge on the river Kwai. And then we got up in a flagpole, we have a gugus, it's sort of a plastic thing, plastic toy from Sweden. So this is Gigi. And then in the house where they sell marmalade and other stuff, there is someone like a person named Ben, and he's wondering how to mix the marmalade, and how in Swedish is hur, so that's Ben Hör. And then we come to the parking lot, and that's 1960, and there we have just an apartment, the apartment. And then we move on to 1961. It's outside of a car, and someone has put a West there, West Side Story. And then 1962, it's we walking inside a mall, and Lawrence is riding past us on a camel. So that's Lawrence of Arabia. And then we arrive at 1963, and it's in one of these wagons that you can bring into the mall, and they will have Tom, to remind me of Tom Jones. And then at the desk of the store we have a Fair Lady, My Fair Lady. And then we come to 1965, and it's a friend of mine sitting there on a bench singing Sound of Music. And 1966 would be when we leave this building, and then there's a man there, and he's having some snow and some grass and something from All Seasons. This is a man for all seasons. And then when we move out, we come to some statues where there is something going on there. That's it's the heat of the night. And then we move on to the cash machine, and there's some olives. It's Oliver. And then we find on a stone there's a cowboy sitting in the midnight, the moonlight, and this is the Midnight Cowboy. And then we reach 1970, and there's just a big guy patting on a garbage bin, so it's Patton, the General Patton. And then we move into this candy store. And they will have a phone line reaching France, French connection. And then 1972, inside the locker where they have soft drinks, the Godfather is sitting watching us suspiciously. This is the Godfather. And then we move to the desk of this store, and there is a bee stinging us, the sting. And then 1974, behind this desk, the Godfather again, holding up two fingers to show victory, because this is the Godfather Part 2. And then we move out to the cinemas, and the planche from the cinemas, and there's a cuckoo's nest under this planche. So that is One Flew Above the Cuckoo's Nest, and it's 1975. And then we move on to the church, and outside the church we have a tree where Rocky Balboa is sort of punching the tree. So that's 1976 movie Rocky. And then we move on to one of the graves, and there is Annie, and she's built a hallway there, so that's Annie Hall. And then inside of the church, 1978, there's someone hunting a deer hunter. And then we move on to the fountain, 1979, and they will have two wrestlers who are fighting, and they're very tired, so they're hugging each other. And hugging in Swedish is krama, so it's Kramer versus Kramer. And then 1980, by another tree, we have a family that just try to look like normal people, ordinary people. And then 1981, it's in a cafe. There are chariots of fire flying through the cafes, the chariots of fire. And then 1982, there's Gandhi sitting on top of the cafe, Gandhi. And then 1973 is outside of a chocolate store, and there are small germs, very, very dear to each other, and that's terms of endearment. And then we're moving into this chocolate store, and the first thing we see is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart playing some music in there, so that's Amadeus. And then we reach 1985, and that's a big map of Africa in front of all the chocolate out of Africa. And then 1986 would be in the ice cream buckets, and that's a big, actually it's the dog Pluto, to remind me of Platoon. And then we have 1987 behind the desk, and that's a king, and he seems to be the last one, the last emperor. Then we move out of this chocolate store, and we see on a street light there's a cloud raining down on a man, Rain Man. And then we move into another store where they sell glasses, and the first one we see there is someone driving Daisy Duck around, driving Miss Daisy. And then we reach 1990, and that's a mirror, and there are wolves dancing around this mirror, dancing with wolves. And then we move out to a small statue of a lion, and this lion is eating some sheep. So this is the Silence of the Lambs. And then 1992, inside another store, there is someone who just refuses to forgive anyone, the unforgiven. And then we move into another store with another table, and at this table we have someone who's just creating a long list, Schindler's List. And then next to him we've got Forrest Gump running around, so 1994 Forrest Gump. And then we move into the video store, and there we have a heart with a sword through it, that's 1995 Braveheart. And behind the desk at the video store we have behind the counter a patient, an English patient who's very, very sick, so English patient. And then we move on to the videos, and there's a big ship just mowing through the videos, and that's Titanic, 1997. And then we move on to another store in 1998, and there was a Shakespeare, he's desperately in love, Shakespeare in Love. And then we're walking out of this store, and we're arriving at just some box with sand. And in this box we have a doll from America, very beautiful, American Beauty. And then year 2000 we have a gladiator standing next to this sandbox, so that's Gladiator. And then we're moving on through this parking lot, and there is a brain lying here, a very beautiful brain, a beautiful mind. And then we're going into a Chinese restaurant, and on the way in we pass a lot of beans, which are in Swedish called kikärtor, so that's Chicago. And then we move up the stairs and meet all of the whole crew of the Lord of the Rings, and this is the Return of the King. And then we go further into the Chinese restaurant, and we see a baby sitting on top of a bag full of money. This is $1 million baby. And then 2005 is around a table that suddenly crashes into the ground, so that's Crash. And then 2006 is at the bus stop, and there's a coffin with some dead man lying in it, so that's The Departed. And then we're moving into the bus, and the bus driver is a very, very old man who really thinks that he's come to the wrong country, and this is no country for old men. And then 2008 is in one of the seats there's a dog from the Slum Dog Millionaire. And then 2009, that would be on some other seat, and there's a big locker that is damaged, the Hurt Locker. And then we have 2010, that's where you sort of pay in this bus, and there's a king standing next to it trying to give a speech, the king's speech. And then we've got in a children's wagon, there's a an artist painting a painting, the artist, and then 2012, outside of that, we have some ship with pirates, and they're all yelling "Arg" because this is Argo. And then 2013, that's outside of another bus stop, and there's a slave sitting there, and he's been a slave for 12 years, 12 years a slave. And then 2014, which should be the latest one, we look up into the sky and we see a man flying by, and that's Birdman, or the unexpected virtue of ignorance.
So you have to keep adding to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the last ones I haven't repeated them so much. I just added them to the end.
Wow, that's exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. It's much quicker just to, of course, see the images in your head and run through them than actually explain all of them.
Wow. Do it again.